There's an uncomfortable and very inconvenient and un-Instagrammable truth. And it may be one that you don't want to hear. Let me ask you something that, if you're the kind of person who's honest, should rattle your sense of reality just a little bit. Who has actually been running your life? It's not you. Every reaction you've had since childhood was pre-coded by ghosts. And what I'm saying here isn't a bunch of philosophy. This is neuroscience. The part of your brain that's like the 911 operator is called the amygdala. When it senses a threat, it does not call you. And it floods your bloodstream with cortisol. And it pulls these preloaded bullshit scripts from childhood trauma and ancestral memory. You have a panic attack? That is not modern day, today's stress in the moment. That's your mother's anxious attachment style. That's your father's frozen, contained rage. It's your great-grandmother's fear of exile and shame. It's the 6-year-old version of you, the one that learned love or attention had to be earned, that silence meant safety. It's the one that learned that approval was a currency that you needed to earn to survive. You have to shrink to make other people more comfortable. This isn't you. It is ghosts, and they're running this frickin' show. All of this is not optimizing you for any kind of greatness. You're the child still trying not to be abandoned. You're still auditioning for love. I've worked with Fortune 100 CEOs making billion-dollar decisions from a wounded psyche of a bullied third grader. So nothing of what I'm saying, nothing is theoretical. This is neurological reality. I don't care what the guy with the sweater vest and the legal pad who told you to lay down on a couch said. That is inherited hypervigilance from generations that survived a ton of serious wear. War, exile, abandonment, and rejection. And I think there's a lot of people out there, maybe some of you, trying to, quote, live your truth while you're still obeying ancient survival scripts. And unless you intervene, your system is going to keep writing the same, I'm trying not to curse, the same effed up story. So your final rebellion against this is that you choose authorship over obedience. And you understand that you are not your triggers. And you are not some ghost-written biography that people like to talk about all the time. Every role that you play was assigned before you had a choice. The audience that they're performing for is gone. The director of the movie is dead. And you're still at the center of that stage, bleeding for applause that's never coming. It is time to stop performing someone else's tragedy, including your childhood self. That is not you anymore. That's someone else. Not even one cell of your body is the same as that little girl or that little boy. But let's talk about reclaiming your authorship, becoming an author of your life. The first thing that I will tell you is awareness is a weapon. Do not trust your first emotion. You have to question it and trace it back to the signal. The next one is insert the pause. So between the trigger and the reaction, that's where your sovereignty lives. In between those two things. And you have to understand that my sovereignty resides in this moment between a trigger and a reaction. The next thing is rewrite expectancy. Your brain prepares for what it predicts. So if you change your forecast, you change your future.
Neuroscientists and behavioral experts like Chase Hughes are not the first to discover that our suffering is caused by the ghosts of ancestral trauma.
That's not ridiculous. That's not ridiculous to say that.
3,000 years ago, we were talking about the sins of the father being visited upon the children and grandchildren unto the third and fourth generation.
That's crazy!
And 100 years ago, Carl Jung taught us about the most powerful ghost of all, the wounded inner child. The ghost that we are so completely obedient to that its insecurities, anxieties, neuroses, and coping mechanisms place a hard, concrete ceiling on the development of our consciousness, the achievement of our goals, and the fulfillment of our potential.
No, God! No, God, please, no! 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 No!
Yes!
Fortunately, the solution to escaping the ghosts of the past and taking back authorship of our lives has been around for at least 3,000 years since it was first identified by the mystics who wrote the Vedas and who called it the witness, as well as the Taoist sages who called it the empty mirror of consciousness, and later the Buddhist masters who called it the watching mind that observes without judgment or attachment. So when Chase says,
awareness is a weapon. Do not trust your first emotion. You have to question it and trace it back to the signal.
what he is actually saying is cultivate the witness, because only witnessing consciousness frees you from your triggered emotional reactions.
Really?
Yes!
And when Chase says,
Insert the pause. So between the trigger and the reaction, that's where your sovereignty lives. In between those two things. And you have to understand that my sovereignty resides in this moment between a trigger and a reaction.
what he is actually saying is cultivate the witness, because only witnessing consciousness allows you to insert the pause, because it is non-judgmental, unconditional, and non-reactive.
That's a good point. You've got a good point.
And when Chase says,
Rewrite expectancy. Your brain prepares for what it predicts. So if you change your forecast, you change your future.
what he is actually saying is cultivate the witness, because what our brains expect and what our brains predict takes the form of our subconscious scripts, which are caused by the passed on trauma and wounding of our parents and grandparents, in addition to our own childhood trauma and wounding. And only the witness is capable of identifying both the subconscious scripts and the wounds that caused them, so that the wounds can be healed and the scripts can be rewritten.
Yes! That's awesome!
In other words, when Chase talks about choosing authorship over obedience to the ghosts of the past that are sabotaging your plans, making you unhappy, and causing you to suffer, he is actually saying what the ancient Vedas and the Taoist sages and the Zen masters and the Sufi mystics have been saying for thousands of years. If you want to live a meaningful and fulfilling life that is free of suffering and unhappiness, you have to master yourself. You have to transform your consciousness by cultivating the witness. Sign up to The Only Way Out Is In, and you'll gain immediate access to a post that outlines exactly how to transform your consciousness so that unhappiness, suffering, and unfulfillment become nothing more than a memory.